Hello, Chester here. Today we're going to play the Sultai Show and Tell. This is a classic combo deck that you can play in Timeless, which is arguably the tier 0 deck of the format right now, next to Mardu Energy. And I say tier 0 because it does have a pretty even matchup, if not better, into Energy. So the entire deck resolves around Show and Tell. For 3 mana, each player may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land from their hand into the battlefield. And the way the deck is built is that you have much bigger payoffs than most decks in the format. So you have Omniscience here, which lets you cast spells from your hand without paying mana costs. You have Atraxa as a big beater that can also get you more cards. And we have Hullbreaker Horror, which can prevent your opponents from playing the game if you have, assuming that you have a lot of instants. And Hullbreaker Horror is pretty essential here because you can kill your opponent at instant speed using Orcish Bowmasters. So one of the abilities lets you return permanents back to its owner's hand. You can't keep recasting Bowmasters and pinging your opponents for one repeatedly. Just make sure you return the original Bowmasters back to your hand when doing the loop. So how does the deck usually get there? The other spells in this deck do one of two things. You either dig for more cards or look at more cards, or it prevents your opponents from interacting with you. The Veil of Summer here is anti-discard and counter spell tech, all in one card for a green mana. Mana Drain can also be used to protect your combo, but this is usually to protect yourself from dying before casting the combo. And we have Demonic Shooter here, which can search for a card. Assemble similarly does almost the same, but it only looks at the top third of your library. And what makes this archetype really strong is that it can play the control game using Orcish Bowmasters and Mana Drain to disrupt your opponent a bit. And once you cast Rakshas's Bargain or Dig Through Time, it's highly likely that you find your show and tell and at least a payoff here. And as for the sideboard, we have a new card right here, Carpet of Flowers, which makes the blue matchups really easy. Once you resolve a Carpet of Flowers against a blue deck, it's really hard for them to keep up with all the mana advantage that you gain. You also have Abrupt Decay to destroy key creatures that are pressuring you, such as Ragavan. But most importantly, it deals with a lot of the permanent based hate that can be played against you. We have Culling Ritual here, which is required for the energy matchup. So, as I mentioned, you can pivot into a control role into that matchup, and even landing another structure is fine against them. You don't really have to end the game on the spot. Most of the time, you just have to take control of the board. We also have Thoughtseize here as a anti-control and combo tool. Cruise and Grip is mostly for the mirror. Force of Vigor destroys enchantments or artifacts. So most things that are covered by Abrupt Decay are also covered by Force of Vigor, with the difference of being able to be cast for free. We also have Commandeers here, which is anti-Dark Ritual combo deck. You usually want to steal their payoffs. So most of their payoffs consist of Soren, Reanimate, Necropotence or Necrodominance, or even Belcher. So that's it. Let's try to play some games. Second match of the Metagame Challenge. The first one was a freebie. First hand wasn't keepable. The second one wasn't keepable because they're all lands. This one is decent. We have Mandarin and Show and Tell in hand. The fetch lands can surveil us into action. I wasn't sure what deck they're playing, and when they did fetch for a hedge maze, I thought it was Show and Tell. But the scrapyard there indicates that they are on Shift Intel instead. They get one ring, then we just surveil. Not going to keep that since we have teachings in hand. Atraxa could possibly be fine depending on what's in their hand, but no need to fire off Show and Tell if we aren't really pressured to. We're just going to look for omniscience at this point. The next turn could be scary because they could go discard an omniscience here. Now, since they cast cash grab, they can mana drain this because they might not have the shifting woodlands in hand yet. And it's fine to let them resolve wandering because we're mainly focused on just comboing off. Since they have the one ring in play and they also have shifting woodlands along with scrapyard, we need to act on that and be able to combo off the next turn because it's likely we're going to die if we don't go off. They can't activate the scrapyard right now and discard omniscience. And if they go for it here, we can cast Dig Through Time and find the omniscience. Going for Emmy is still good for us. It does pressure us to just find the combo, and we find it. This deck is likely to win a stack war against the Shift and Tell decks because we have a lot of instant speed things that we can do, and they don't have omniscience in hand, so it's way easier. Sideboarding, we just want abrupt decay, force of vigor, and thought seize. We don't want Veil of Summer because they don't really run any counter spells with their mana base. We remove Atraxas because we aim to combo off and kill them at the same turn. This hand is pretty capable because we have surveils and we have show and tell. Since they presented carpet here, to play around it, you just need to play out fetch lands and basically never crack them until you need to. Their rumble hits pretty bad. There are two options here. We can play the teachings to further prevent them from gaining mana or hold up mana drain. They only get one mana anyway, so holding up mana drain is fine. Stone Brain gets countered here. Unfortunately, we need to fetch for an island, and we are pressured to go off fast here because they can just they can just copy the Stone Brain and still use it. Now I'm trying to decide here if it's worth casting Show and Tell and just putting Hullbreaker Horror into play. But I'm not really sure what's in their hand, so that definitely isn't a winning play. We should dot seeds first. We're pretty lucky that they don't have any action in hand. They can copy Stone Brain here, and I'm hoping they exile Omniscience instead so that we can show and tell and release the Hullbreaker Horror. They decide to name show and tell, which is kind of okay for us still. They don't have any action. Now we have the option to play Bowmasters to get some pressure on. Hopefully they don't find anything. So we're just gonna apply pressure here and get the mana drain so that we can hard cast Hullbreaker Horror if they decide to cast something. We don't play the teachings as a land because we might be able to use it to get another mana drain if needed. Because right now they are limited to drawing one card per turn. Okay, so this Devourer of Destiny will give us mana to cast Hullbreaker Horror, which hopefully lets us close this out because we can just keep casting instant speed spells here to sort of counter their play. We're really worried about them hard casting an Emrakul right here. There's also the risk of them having another Devourer, but we can just save the Hullbreaker Horror if that happens. This should close the game out. We attack for 10, we can return the Bowmasters back to hand with a Brainstorm. We can try to, they don't, they can try to copy the creature there. But since they didn't, we can just win here. Our opponent has a Lurus, so that means they might be playing any fair deck. We have Show and Tell and Atraxa, which is keepable. Now the deck looks strange because they play Expedition Map. At this point, I'm still confused because I don't really know what kind of deck this is. I only assumed they had some land they wanted to get, and maybe that land was Lotus Field, but we're still not sure about that. The Deserted Temple untaps a target land, so it's probably Lotus Field. It's not like they can fetch for Thespian Stage and fetch for a Dark Depths here. At this point, I assume that there are a combo deck, but I don't think they can go off on my turn if I decide to show and tell. I'm also thinking about just pinging the channeler because this is probably a breach deck. Here I just deploy a truck in hopes to getting me one step closer to comboing off. I'm not sure if they're able to go off next turn, but it's better to ensure that I can. Discarding 3, we want all the instant speed spells just in case. Now that's interesting because with one Lotus Field activation, they got a one of those untapped lands and might be able to go off here. Hidden strings indicate that they are playing Twiddle Storm. And since we did get the combo of the Atraxa, we just win here. So for these random matchups, you really want to know whether it's safe to cast show and talent or not. And we were able to correctly assess that they can't go off during the turn that I cast the Atraxa, which leads us to winning this match or game. Sideboarding, we're not really sure how to approach this matchup if we want to bring Abrupt Decays or Force of Vigor. But since we assume that they are a breach deck, Abrupt Decay is probably correct and Force of Vigor is also correct. Now, what's left is assessing if we need to come up with a plan, whether they pivot into something more fair and disruptive. Carpet of Flowers is also good because they are still a blue deck, but we're not really sure if we want to fight on that axis. For now, we'll try because it lets us raise if they try to combo off. This hand is keepable. It has brainstorms, lands, and a combo piece. Starting it off with a survey land, we want to be able to find show and tell, but Force of Vigor is also good here. Now we can hold up brainstorm just in case because they can go off here if they wanted to. There's the breach. So we might be able to use force of vigor here to try and stop them from going off. But at this point, they do have a high enough. Do they do have a high enough storm count to outright kill me with a tendrils. And here's the tendrils. In hindsight, I should have cast brainstorm here instead of conceding. We can still hit our Veil of Summer and possibly countered all of those triggers. Since I've confirmed they're on breach, we add the second abrupt decay and change our plan to removing the carpet of flowers and adding more mana drains. This hand is a turn 3 combo if we are in uninterrupted. So we keep. If they do tap out on turn 3 here, we just get to cast show and tell off the demonic shooter. Where it seems they forgot to stifle the trigger, so we just win. Against a deck without a companion, this hand looks pretty bad because double Bowmasters doesn't really do much against combo. Unless, of course, it's show and tell. Okay, might be punished for not keeping the double bowmaster's hand, but we'll still see if they are on show and tell or not. The malevolent rumble here tells us that they are on shift and tell instead. So this was a better keep than the double bowmaster's hand. This point of the game, we just want to look for omniscience fast because they could end up casting show and tell themselves. But more importantly, they could mill over into an omniscience and just shifting woodlands it. So we're trying to rush into finding the combo. Since they went for the show and tell here, we're just going to cast Rakshasa's Bargain instead of trying to win the game using Hullbreaker Horror and Veil of Summer. Because it's most likely to win if we do just find our own omniscience, and we do. The advantage of this deck over Shift and Tell is that we have more instant speed spells. So here I could have Veiled of Summer instead of casting the Hullbreaker Horror. But anyway, I don't think I can lose from the spot. I wanted to focus on removing the omniscience from the board. There's a Boseiju. We can just waterlog teachings for a born, maybe find an Ajaxa and start to go off. We could even just get two Bowmasters there and win on the spot. Up against Shift and Tell, most of their lists don't really have blue interaction, so Veils can go out. We can focus on Thoughtseize, Abrupt Decay, and Force of Vigor instead because they do have Stone Brain, which can make things difficult for us. This hand is fine because it has Brainstorm and Mana Drain and a bunch of fetches. Brainstorm is really broken that way that it makes a lot of hands keepable. Surveil lands are also pretty good because it's like casting Consider. There's a demonic shooter, but we're not going to cast it. We don't know what we should look for yet. So we just hold on to Mana Drain. And you want to be countering the Rumbles aggressively, especially since they have Shifting Woodlands in play already. And here, since I don't really have any combo pieces, I'm going to try to look for one using Brainstorm. And since we didn't find any combo pieces, we do have to think about what the opponent is going to do next turn. And I think the best play that we have here is to demonic shooter for a thought seize just to see what they're working with. Let me just take the rumble here, prevent them from going off. They could cast Null Drifter here to draw two cards. Since we know what they had in hand, we're just gonna work our way into preventing them from comboing off before we can. And it's highly likely that we get there first because we have Dig Through Time in hand. We also have Demonic Tutor in the graveyard, which we can Sanctuary back. We're just going to Dig Through Time here, find a combo piece. Since we found Omniscience, we know that we can tutor for Show and Tell now. Thoughtseize is really powerful in this kind of matchups because you do get to see what you need to play around with. Here I can just jam the Show and Tell without any problem. On the play against a Lurus deck, we have the combo in hand already, so it's a snap keep. Even if this is Mardu energy, I don't think our thought process changes. Our opponent goes on a fast but not disruptive start. Luckily, we did just have the turn 3 show and tell. They should have cast the Juggernaut Peddler there, but I guess they don't have an untapped land, so that's what's happening here. And here's the strength of the way this deck is built. We have four waterlogged teachings, which translates into land drops or tutors for anything that we need. Against Mardu Energy, we just want to remove the assemble and we just want to bring in the culling rituals, the abrupt decays, and the force of vigor. And we need to cut on mana drain. The sand is great. It has Veil of Summer and it has Orcish Bowmasters, which can disrupt the opponent. Them not being able to dash Ragavan here is big. Our opponent is already on two cards left, and we still have a Bowmasters in hand and a Bowmasters on the battlefield. And as long as we prolong the game, we can cast Rakshasa's Bargain or Dig Through Times. We can double block here. The Bowmasters has done some damage already. Now we're just going to surveil for show and tell. The Atraxa in hand will likely to win the game here. The bargain here finds a ritual and omniscience, abrupt decay. I do want abrupt decay, calling ritual and omniscience, but I think Culling Ritual and Omniscience are the best ones because Culling Ritual removes everything on the board anyway. In hindsight here, the Abrupt Decay is probably better than Omniscience because they do have lures in hand and they also have a Juggernaut Peddler in the graveyard, which could ruin our chances of trying to combo off. Here I'm realizing the threat of lures into Juggernaut Peddler. So we're just gonna go for Rakshasa's Bargain here on top, then Culling Ritual. But this is actually a misplay because if they do get another land, they can play Lurus and dash in Ragavan to get that Rakshasa's Bargain off. Luckily, they don't find the fifth land, and we get to cast Rakshasa's Bargain here, hopefully getting the win. And that is a perfect hit. We find Show and Tell, we have Omniscience, and they don't have any hate pieces. Opponent doesn't have Companion. We have Veil of Summer in hand and Brainstorm, and they fetch land. That's good enough. So this tells me that they might be on Titan Field. Now that young wolf tells me they're on Yawgmoth combo instead. So we are in trouble since they might get to assemble the combo faster than us. And they might even have a natural order into Creator of win here. This looks like a Bowmaster's turn, but we do have the Veil of Summer, so it's fine. You want to be using the Veil of Summer after you drawn the three cards, because normally people would just target you with the Orcish Bowmasters, and now you get to Veil of Summer, and in the end they only get one trigger from that Brainstorm. That Brainstorm was pretty bad though. We're trying to look for fetch, but unfortunately we are stuck with the Show and Tell and the Atraxa, which might not be enough because they have the Yawgmoth on play already. We're still going to go for show and tell into a Chaksa here because a Chaksa could let us find the remaining combo that we need. And this is basically them trying to find blood artist, I guess, or the combo. We're just gonna get the remaining combo pieces. I did not get the hull breaker there because they might have discard. Here they just demolish shooter for artist and have the combo on board. I'm not really sure how to board against this deck, but I'm pretty sure we want sweepers in. So Culling Ritual goes in, Abrupt Decay goes in. But other than that, I feel like we do want Mana Drain just in case they have Natural Order. And Atraxa is pretty bad here because they can just out combo us. Dropping a fair Atraxa against Yawgmoth is not a good plan. Going on the play, we find a Culling Ritual, Veil of Summer, and Brainstorm. Hands with Brainstorms and land fetch lands usually are insta keeps. We're just surveilling here for either combo pieces interaction. The real strength of this deck is once it gets to 3 mana, you can start casting things like Rakshasa's Bargain in order to aggressively dig for your combo at instant speed. And I let this go because next turn I know I'm able to cast Culling Ritual. That right shaman is okay. Blood Artist gets mana drained here. Or maybe not. Okay, that veil is fine. We're going to take some damage because of the Blood Artist, but that's fine. Now we're going to brainstorm here because we haven't made a land drop yet. Maybe we stumble into the combo. We did not stumble into the combo, so we're just gonna hold up a fetch land. Here they cast Yawgmoth. We can dig through time here, looking for interaction, or if we have the combo, we don't really care. We don't find the combo, and with that brainstorm, we do get to see show and tell. So in short, we were able to dig through 10 cards there. Now we just win from here because we do have waterlogged teachings. We also have Born Upon the Wind to just draw that dig through time. And from here, you're just going to look for the Atroxa, the Hullbreaker Horror, the Double Bowmasters. I think I'm fine with how I boarded here, so we're just gonna run it back. It's almost the same hand as the last game, but with Rakshasa's Bargain instead of Brainstorm. But it's still a good hand. This is a problem because we can't really surveil the one of Hullbreaker Horror. Now I have to think about having to hold up Veil of Summer. But I guess that if they took the time to thought seize me, they're probably going to take Culling Ritual instead of the Hullbreaker Horror. The natural order here is carry because if they do have Crater Hoof, I think we could be dead. But instead they got a Troxa, which is really fine. We're about to Rakshasa's Bargain here, and there's a good chance we just find a combo. And if we don't find the combo, we can just sweep the board, take 7 from a Troxa. We do find the combo, so we just win on the spot. Boromir is one of the most common creature based hate that you can play. But I think that is one of the worst because you have things like Veil of Summer to negate that effect. You'd probably want Oricon instead if you want to beat Show and Tell because that really limits them to only casting one spell per turn. They go for Veil here. we're just going to bounce that back to their hand. I think I've played this poorly, but it doesn't matter because we have omniscience out and we have waterlogged teachings. We can just get dig through time. We pass the turn here since we have dig through time and abrupt decay. There's a chance that I whiff if I try to go off on the previous turn, and I don't think our opponent can win with what they have. It's a bit risky, but not not even sure if it's a mistake or not. There's a veil. We just bounce that back, and we only need to find a waterlogged teachings or a bowmasters here to win. That's why it's really safe to get the dig through time. Last one for the metagame challenge. They're on lures, which indicates they might be on frog or Mardu energy. That land means they are on Mardu energy. And we have a great hand here because we have Veil of Summer and Brainstorm, of course. Pretty powerful start from them. I don't want the land here. Just holding up Brainstorm here. And since they peddlered, we can Brainstorm first, then get a breeding pool. When we find one piece of the combo, you want to be using Veil of Summer before Juggernaut Peddler hits the board so that they are forced to show what's on their hand instead. And we see they have two prisons, one discharge, or one prison and one discharge. Now we just have to find show and tell. I'm just gonna brainstorm here with the intent of casting mana drain. We don't need the Truxa because we have Waterlogged Teachings and Morgan in hand. Preserve the life total. We have to counter the guide because it does represent two more damage, and that would be exactly lethal if I let that resolve. And I know about the static prison and know that we can safely go off here. So against this matchup, we take out the Born, we take out the Assemble, we take out Mana Drains for Force of Vigor, Abrupt Decay, and Culling Ritual. And that's basically it. This hand has six lands, so it's not keepable. This one has a couple of Brainstorms and a Fetch land, so this is keep. We bottom the Mystic Sanctuary because we don't want to be playing that. We have Waterlogged Teachings to play as a land anyway. Unlicensors really does nothing here, and I'm glad that they brought that in. It's slightly annoying if my hand was heavy on Dig Through Time, but we do have Rakshas's Bargain. And they keep passing the turn here, so we're just going to go ahead and pass the turn as well. There's no need to do anything. If your opponent is not presenting any pressure, then it's good for us. Bombardment could mean a Johnny coming our way. They're still not doing anything, but we have land drops to do. So we're just going to keep hitting them until they do something like this. Oh, there's a shooter. We get to see what we need to play around. There's a static person there. Yeah, Johnny is concerning, but not much because we are still at 20. We're just going to brainstorm here, looking for the combo. We don't need the extra Veil of Summer. So this turn we just plan to cast Demonic Shooter and hold up Veil of Summer, and we can keep that Omniscience. We can also just try to hit the combo here with Brainstorm. Unfortunately, we do not find the show and tell. So now I'm going to have to tutor for show and tell and just hold up the Veil of Summer. Flip the Johnny. We don't activate the Johnny, which means they are dead. And that's it. We have a Choxa to follow up with. We just need to find the Hullbreaker and two Bowmasters and we win. A very decent run for show and tell. It's a good hand. We have show and tell and omniscience. We can just rush the combo. But since this is a mirror, it's pretty risky to go for the combo immediately. So I suspect this will be a grind fest. We're just going to make our land drops here and start casting brainstorms when we can't. Since I value this sanctuary, I think I'm okay with getting hit with the bowmasters if ever they do have one. Because then I'll just force the issue and cast show until next turn. This is just a waiting game. Soon we'll be able to cast Dig Through Time, and Mystic Sanctuary here is an important resource. I'm just gonna do it again. Risk getting hit by Bowmasters. Rewarded. We get back redundant pieces. We're starting to sculpt a pretty good hand here. But I don't think it's correct to go off yet. But what we can do is maybe cast a Dig Through Time on their turn, then mana drain it. We are at a disadvantage because they have Mistress Village on play already. So we are kind of pressured to go off as soon as possible. And I think this is the perfect window where we can dig through time, counter our own dig through time if they decide to mana drain. And we have still fetches in play so that we can get back dig through time when it gets countered. So the first fetch, we're just gonna get island, counter our own dig through time, which forces them to have the second mana drain. Since they have the second mana drain, we can now force the issue going to our turn. Since we have show and tell, we basically have the combo. And we have lots more cards compared to four cards. And we have mana drain here to stop a Veil of Summer. Nice. So for the mirror match, we want to be trimming down on show and tell up until one or two, depending on what you think is best. It's pretty much a mind game here because you can keep all show and tells and try to go off early. But I don't think that's a good plan. So in my mind, this is the best plan that I could come up for the mirror. I wanted to have commandeers here, but I don't think I have any slots for that. So Thoughtseize and Carpet of Flowers will do, and Crucian Grip. The first hand doesn't have lands. This hand is good, and we're going to think about keeping all the lands or bottoming a show and tell. And I think it's better to bottom the show and tell because this is a staring match. Bowmasters is good. Veil of Summer is also good. And we have to keep in mind that our opponent could be playing Carpet of Flowers. So having fetches here is an advantage if they do have one. We don't want to crack fetches recklessly. We just need to make our land drops. I'm thinking about casting a symbol here, but I don't think we need to. Here we try to brainstorm since we are protected by Veil. We see more lands, which we like. We're just gonna keep dropping non-island lands here. Now it's safe to cast a symbol. Don't want to bowmasters into that. I don't want to tap down as much as possible because I'm really trying to be conservative with the island count that I have. Again, we don't really respond to the brainstorm. there's a carpet. We decided not to counter that because we were playing around it the whole game. Now I'm interested in getting my own carpet resolved. They don't have green mana here, so this is pretty safe. I make a mistake here and I play it tapped. I could have gone for Hullbreaker Horror this turn because I had 9 mana and I had Demonic Tutor. So instead, I just go for Demonic Tutor, get Hullbreaker Horror, then just have, and then just cast the Bowmasters. There's also the option to Thoughtseize, which could also be correct in this situation. But I think the number one priority for me is getting Hullbreaker Horror and just cast the Orcish Bowmasters here to not waste mana. Still mindful of the fetch because we do want to keep the Carpet of Flowers low. They can cast their own Hullbreaker Horror here, but they're going to be tapping out. And for this turn, we're just sure that we're going to go for the Hullbreaker Horror. Now we have Hullbreaker Horror backed by 2 spells. I'm not gonna fight over this because they could just have Veil of Summer. We still let them get mana here. Now we can bounce show and tell using just Veil. They try to counter the veil here, and it does get countered, but it's still we still get to have them recast the show and tell. And now I just can cast Dig Through Time here to return the show and tell in hand. A better way to do this is to hold priority and cast the Dig Through Time before the demonic shooter goes on top. They commandeer the Dig Through Time. Now we can just use the demonic shooter to find for a good card, possibly a Thought Seeds. We're just gonna try to keep them off killing the Hullbreaker Horror or comboing off. There's a Veil of Summer. We can cast Rakshas's Bargain to return that to hand. And we get Veil and Mana Drain. So they go for Carpet here, and they are pretty starved on green mana. So we could just bounce the Carpet of Flowers here with Hullbreaker Horror. And that's the game. Welcome back. So what do you think of the deck? I do think it's near tier zero right now. It can have good energy matchups, assuming that you adjust the main deck and sideboard a bit. We do have two culling rituals, two abrupt decays for that matchup. Some lists does include Fatal Push, which can also be good against turn one Regavans. And what really makes this deck a real powerful deck is against aggro decks, it can just use Orcish Bowmasters to slow them down, cast Rakshas's Bargain to dig for the combo, and then go off. Against Tempo, you can do something similar. Orcish Bowmasters is really good there. And practically, what I'm saying is that Orcish Bowmasters carries a lot of weight in a lot of matchups. Into aggro, into combo, and to control, Bowmasters is good. And even if your opponent is ready for the combo, you can just have the plan B of hard casting everything. You can hard cast your Atraxa, you can hard cast your Hull Breakers, you can hard cast your Bowmasters. Just play the fair game. So really sounds like that it is unbeatable, but most of the decks that can beat this deck are only held back by Mardu energy. Because I do think things like Rakdos Cutter or even Burn, any aggressive tempo deck can have a good matchup against the show until deck. But again, it's really held back by Mardu energy, which kind of kills all fair creature or fair mid range decks. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching.